organized in 1959, and I think maybe we have one or two members of that first team. But we're going to bring you some of these activities tonight. There are a lot of pizzas around. There are a lot of people that are going around munching. They're sitting on the side of the pool. We understand there's to be some sort of program where they introduce the older coaches that have been with this team for years. We'll get some of the swimmers. I don't know what we'll get tonight, but this Kennett City Pool has a long history, and we have covered many things that have been going on. There was a city pool in the Jones Park, as you remember from some years ago. We have some pictures from that Jones Park. And now we've gone to this wonderful Sheryl Crow Aquatic Center. Ready, go. Okay, now the purpose of the swim, just for stamina?
Yes, ma'am. I like to work on strokes with them for coordination.
I'd like to begin by sort of having all former swimmers that are here, most of you are standing, but kind of stand. And if you were an old coach of Kennett Swim Team, can you kind of step forward so we know who all of you are? I don't want to leave someone out, and I know there are several old coaches here. I know it's Mr. Sonny Burns, Randy Carter, Beth Hilburn-Shetley, Julie Lack, Melinda Harris, Charlene Hilburn, Barbie Pemberton, Brent Carr, Noel Billings, Janet Hilburn, Jordan White, Rand Dalton. If I've left anyone out, I apologize. There were lots. We've discovered that we don't have a whole lot of knowledge about some of the history of Kennett Swim Team. We've learned a lot through this 50th anniversary as to how it started. They sort of started as a diving team that Mr. Burns sort of led off. It was founded obviously by Mrs. Jeanette Miles, Dana's mother, who we're fortunate. Dana will always be a Kennett swim teamer. Her girls are Gators now, but she'll always have KST in her heart. They do too, they just don't know it. Anyway, I'm so glad that everyone is here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dana, who would like to say a few words.
So Dana is the daughter of Jeanette Miles.
Well, thank you very much. I wanted to say a few things because since the newspaper guy called me last week in Cape and wanted to ask me some questions, I started thinking about everything. And actually, I found an old newspaper from June 19th, 1961 with my mom in her swimsuit at the city pool and all these members of the original team teaching a swimming clinic. And the headline is 201 swimmers attend this swimming workshop. So I, of course, meant to bring it in, left it in the car, but I will bring that in. But I started thinking back, and the names that were in the paper all started sounding familiar, because really that was a little bit even before my time. But I remember my mom talking about families in the community coming to her and asking her if she would start a swim team. And she had a passion for swimming, and she was very competitive, and it was one of those things I think she was anxious to do. And I heard lots of great stories growing up about the Kennett swim team and the teams that they would swim. And I just think it's remarkable that a town of 10,000 can take a sport like swimming and do what Kennett has done with that. And I think a lot of that comes from, I know there's lots of families that are part of the team now, but there's families that have been in swimming at Kennett Swim Team long before I was here, and I'm just thrilled that this is happening, and it's been going on for 50 years. Now this weekend, I know I live in Cape now, and it makes me very proud that a community that size, where on the club team there we have people from several different communities swimming, and I'll tell you, Kennett scares them to death. And I love it that a town of 10,000 can come up wearing the same suits they've been wearing all year and do that, because there's lots of swimmers up there that train year round, and I know you all saw them that were there in $200 and $300 swimsuits. And I'm happy that they feel threatened because it helps them have a good meet, and I think it has Kennett have a good meet. But that's what it's about, is helping each other have our best swims and being better swimmers and competing in the great sport. But a few names I want to mention, because I started, ironically, I never swam on the Kennett swim team. I grew up, and my mom, after she coached, she gave swimming lessons. And there's a long story I wanted to go into. I don't think I can, but Mom had been in a bad car accident, and they told her she would never walk again. And she would come to the city pool, and it has a concrete railing. She told me the lifeguards had to lift her over that and down into the water for her to have any freedom at all to move. So she'd been a good swimmer before the accident, and she would go to the pool. Her dad was the minister at the Presbyterian Church, and he wanted her to come down here and go to Campbell's Clinic. And the doctor said, "Yeah, Jeanette, you're never going to be able to walk again without the braces and the crutches." But she would go to that pool and she would swim as much as she could, and the guards would lift her in, lift her out. And suddenly she got strong enough where she could walk without the braces and the canes and the crutches. And she was just fine again. And she started having people say, "Jeanette, you're a great swimmer. Could you teach me how to swim?" So she started giving swimming lessons. And then and then I came along in there, and we built a pool in the backyard. And I still remember Mr. Baker finishing the last touches on that pool. I couldn't wait for that to be open and me to get in. And then when, excuse me, I went to college, I started swimming, and I loved it. And I came back here, and Larry McGinnis came in 1979 and needed assistant coach, and I was hired as the assistant coach and coached with Ward for 2 years, and Sally, Striegel, Lowry, and I can tell you some of the best times I have had in my life with the Kennett swim team. And if you were on the team that I coached, you know what I'm talking about. We had a great time. We were competitive. We worked hard every day, but we had so much fun. And I have to tell 2 quick stories. I hope I'm not going too long. We were at Poplar Bluff one year, and the other teams in the conference changed. This year it happens to be the Gators. Back in this time it was Poplar Bluff, and we were head-to-head with them in a meet at their pool. And Sally looked at me and goes, "Dana, I think we're going to get all the points in this event." And I said, "Sally, you can't count on that. We're never sure. We've just got to wait and see." She goes, "But Dana, I'm just sure we're going to get all the points in this event." I said, "Sally, we can't count on that." She finally goes, "Dana, will you look?" And I looked down there, and every swimmer in the 50 butterfly was from Kennett. And I said, "Sally, I think you're right." Because our swimmers, they didn't always want to swim those tough events, and I'm sure Melinda does the same thing to this day. But you swim where your team needs you, and that's where we needed them. And we had a whole line of Kennett swimmers, and we swept the whole event. So it was a lot of fun. And I remember Larry Swindle, we were in a conference meeting one time, and he told all the other communities, he said, "You all may beat us in some of these other sports, but we're a powerhouse when it comes to swimming." And that tradition has stayed for 50 years, and I think it's because of the Striegels and the Hilburns and the Combs and so many other families and motivators like my good friend Ward Billings that just keep this team going and bringing new life into it and just setting the standard in Southeast Missouri for swimming. So I'm very proud to be here. Thank you.
I have one quick story to tell on Dana. What you may not know about Dana is she swam the 200 butterfly in college, which obviously if you've ever swam the 100 fly, you know how difficult it is. She did the 200 fly. But Dana is the best power napper that you've ever met, because when we would work on meet results and start trying to place people where we felt like they could score the most points, she was the great strategist on that, as Melinda does now. But whenever we were doing that, her favorite phrase was, "Ward, I'm going to lay down on the floor and take a nap. And just wake me up in 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes." And so throughout the evening, it was always 1 more 5 minutes, 1 more 5 minutes. But needless to say, we're very grateful for Dana's contributions as well as many, many other people. Where the relationships have been forged so strongly through your discipline, through your work ethic, through your commitment, and most importantly, for your love for each other. Because we all know each other for our strengths and weaknesses. We argue, we bicker, we get mad at each other, whatever the case may be, as you do in a small community. When you get up on those blocks, everybody every single person knows that you're setting aside your differences. And there's a great quote that Dana and I were sharing a while ago from, needless to say, Vince Lombardi, that says the will to win and the will to excel, that will to win and that will to excel is more important than any events that occasion them. No matter who gets first, no matter who gets second, no matter who wins the conference championship, there is the desire deep down in each and every one of you that I believe God has provided to do your very best for yourself, for your team members, your community, and hopefully, number one, for the good Lord. And when you do those things, I don't care whether you're 5 years old, whether you're 15 years old, or you're like me, 50 years old, you remember those relationships. And I'm telling you, there is nothing in this world that I know of outside of the church that equals the type of relationships that are built and forged on things just like the Kennett swim team, and in particular the Kennett swim team. So I want to encourage you to stay with it, continue to make your contribution to the team. Many of you all will be coming back from college, as Jordan was this summer, assisting and coaching, and I just encourage you to stick with it, continue to do your best for the team. And as I conclude, there's one thing that comes to my mind from the Bible. It says, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And I'm telling you, when you've been a part of the Kennett swim team, and you've been out there and you've been doing 10 100s on a minute 30, and all of a sudden you're showing up in June and the water's freezing, and by July it's absolutely, smoking in there, and you're listening to the coaches beat on you day after day after day, you forge a relationship, and you begin to love each other, and you have a love for your coaches, and a relationship that I will tell you that'll never end until the day you leave this world. I thank God that I've been a part of it as a swimmer, and as a coach, and as a parent. Thank you.
And our program has really benefited from the PE program in our school. And Miss Barbie was the first PE coach that started the program when Brad Matheny and I were coaching back in 1993. Would you like to say anything, Barbie? You've given swimming lessons a long time in this town as well.
Well, I don't have too much to say. I certainly echo what Ward had to say about what a wonderful tradition the Kennett swim team is. And I know all of you all are just as proud to be part of it as I am. And another story about those days when it was lightning there. Also, that same year, it was terrifically cold for the early part of the season. And I know early in the season it often is cold, but it was terrifically cold that year. The kids came to practice with winter coats on and mufflers and everything. And we bought a thermometer to put in the pool, and it said that tropical fish would die in that water. But Melinda was not to be talked out of quitting early or starting late. Thank you very much.
I feel like
What's
Barbie.
coming up right now?
11-12 girls backstroke.
And where are you from?
Poplar Bluff, and we've got 2 swimmers in this.
Okay.
She's not winning right now, but she'll
All right,
catch up.
But she'll catch up. All right, now that's confidence. Look at that. Look at that turn. Now that's going to be hard. Boy, these two are really hitting it.
Kennett swimmers are hard to beat.
Kennett's going to be hard to beat.
They always are.
Oh, okay. I like to hear that.
Kennett's got the whole city behind them. They've got a really good program. So Kennett has their whole city behind their swimming. They've got a really good program. They're lucky.
Hey, that is so good to hear from somebody from Poplar Bluff, did you say? That is good. And that's the name of the game. It's to get something that people can really be interested in. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Guidelines for Life, a local origination television production made in the studios of the Slicer Street Church right here in Kennett, Missouri. The people of the Slicer Street Church want you to know that following God's rules in life will bring happiness. And now, Guidelines for Life.
Good evening and welcome to Guidelines for Life. I'm Spencer Furby of the Slicer Street Church of Christ, and I welcome you to this time. Hope that you can spend a few moments with us as we look at God's Word together. We have gone through the entire set of 10 commandments, and now we are on the final commandment, which is the strangest of all of them. It is the one that you could not be convicted in a court of law of committing. It's one that changes from a behavior, an externally visible behavior, to something that happens within a person that cannot be regulated from without. Listen to this command in Exodus chapter 20, verse 17. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Coveting. Here's some definitions for you. When the blessing becomes more important than the blesser, or turning goods into gods, or placing more emphasis on the temporary and material than on the eternal and spiritual. The word for covet is actually a very neutral term, simply indicating great desire. And as human beings who are not self-sufficient beings, we were built by God with desires. Nothing is wrong with desiring things. If we didn't desire, we would starve or not procreate, among other things. But when those desires become the focus of our lives and we are not satisfied within restraint, they become our gods, we become their slaves. I believe, is that stuff will make us happy. That's the idea of coveting. If I just had this one thing that I'm looking at, I'll be happy. The problem is that's a huge lie. If stuff and success made us happy, we would be living in the happiest age of human existence on the face of eternity, right now, the face of the planet. But look around. There's more depression, more crime, more drug abuse, more restlessness, more complaining, more hunger for something else than ever before. Stuff doesn't make us happy. The one thing that you covet is not the key to your happiness. This is seen in the child with a new toy. He plays with it for a few days, perhaps, and puts it away in search of another. The drug abuser is satisfied with his high today, but it will require a whole lot more to get that for tomorrow. I would argue that we today are paying a high spiritual price for our physical and financial plenty. And I don't think the cost is worth it. But in shame, I must say that I've made the trade of the eternal for the material as